should do the same kind of draft thing we did last week, but I think we should draft Super Bowl contenders. So we'll each take 5 teams who we think could win the Super Bowl. And so, Clark, you can have the first pick again, and you can pick your number 1 seed, and we'll just go back and forth, and we'll draft our Super Bowl contenders.
Okay. So I'll go first?
Yeah, you can go first.
All right. So with my first pick in the Super Bowl selection draft, I'll go ahead and I'll take Kansas City. How can you not go with Kansas City right now? I feel like the defense is always a question mark with them. They play well enough and make enough plays to make it happen. The real thing is, though, with Kansas City is Patrick Mahomes is the MVP of the league at this point. It's not much of a question. They are a juggernaut. They've somehow gotten better despite not having one of the best receivers in the NFL. Smith-Schuster, MVS, Kadarius Toney looks like a real threat. That guy's as slippery as it gets. You cannot tackle him in the open field. And Travis Kelce continues to be unreal. Kansas City, in my mind, they beat everyone no matter what. It doesn't matter where they are. If you're in Buffalo, if you're in Tampa, they do it to everyone. They find ways to win every week. They would got to be my number 1 for my Super Bowl contender pick.
Yeah, that's where I would have went the same way. Such a strong team. They have the best head coach quarterback combo in the league right now. Andy Reid is probably the best coach in the league. Patrick Mahomes is easily the best quarterback in the league. I'm sorry for all those Josh Allen lovers. It's not a conversation.
It's still not.
It's not a conversation.
It's like, that's the thing. I mean, I will give like credence to what some Chiefs fans say that's very annoying is that if you think your quarterback is better than Patrick Mahomes, he's not.
No.
There's guys who are close. You can say, oh, they have. If you watch Patrick Mahomes every week, he's a magician. He has the most electric arm I've seen in football my entire life. It seems like anytime you give him a little bit more extended time than you should, he finds someone. It's crazy.
Yeah, totally agree. So then with my first pick, I'm going to go on the other flip. We just talked about Josh Allen, so I'm going to take the Buffalo Bills.
Okay.
I think this is going to be our AFC championship game again. I think it's going to be I guess it wasn't last year.
It wasn't last year, sir. I remember someone else representing the AFC Super Bowl.
You're right, but it was the big game. You're right. Cincinnati ended up going to the Super Bowl, but I'm going to take the Buffalo Bills. I think if we're talking about teams, I mean, the Bills have a lot of question marks, I feel like, out over the last couple of weeks. But if I'm still taking a team going into the playoffs, I'm still going to take the Bills. Yeah. They have a good defense who's been exposed a little bit, but they can always buckle down and play better. And they have Josh Allen, who's the second best quarterback in the league. Mm-hmm. The tendonitis is a little bit of a question mark, and I'm a little worried about it because the arm angle's all off. But, I mean, again, they probably should have beat Minnesota. They didn't do it. But they're on bye this week. We'll see how they come back. I'm still taking Buffalo with my number 1 pick.
All right. I like it. I mean, I think you can't really go wrong there with those two teams. I mean, again, we have a very high perception of the AFC. I think we definitely think it's a better conference. But yeah, so for my number 2 one, though, I'm going to go ahead and take the team that I think is going to represent the NFC. Okay. You have to go with San Francisco. I think the way San Francisco looked otherworldly tonight. I think you saw what San Francisco looks like when Shanahan is just in his bag, when he's just calling everything perfectly. This is a team now with CMC, Debo. They're finally using Brandon Ayuk, which I've begged for. They have a legit number 1 and 2 guy. Kittle gets involved. When San Francisco plays like this, combined with the defensive side of the ball with Fred Warner and the talent they have all around the front 7, this is the most complete roster in football by far. The only thing that ever raises a question with me with the 49ers, and for anyone who's ever known me, with the Bay Area friends who may listen, Jimmy Garoppolo is the only thing that worries me. But I think for San Francisco, Kyle Shanahan is smart enough with more than enough toys to play with that he can mask around what is with Jimmy Garoppolo. And I think he might be one of those coaches that figures out how to win a Super Bowl with a quarterback who is not really capable of doing that on his own. So I would say San Francisco is my number 2 overall pick. Best roster in football for my money. It's just the quarterback that holds him back, and you'll just have to see come playoff time.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk about the other complete roster, which we're going to stay in the NFC. I got to go the Philadelphia Eagles.
All right.
Now,
all right.
The Eagles have looked a little fraudulent over the last 2 weeks, but if I'm talking about a team that probably going to still end up with the number 1 seed in the playoffs, probably still going to get a bye, probably going to have home field advantage all the way throughout, loud fans, hard place to play. Jalen Hurts is making enough plays to win. Again, they look a little fraudulent. I'm a little dicey, but I'm trying to not get stuck on recency bias.
Yep.
I do not think this is a
recency bias here.
Yeah, I do not think this is a 2020 Pittsburgh Steelers situation. I think Jalen Hurts is a lot better than where Ben was at that point in his career. Philly has still beaten good teams. I mean, they beat Minnesota, and everyone keeps forgetting that.
Week 2.
And they beat Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
They have signature wins. So I'm going to stick with Philly. It's a little dicey based on the last couple of weeks, but they have a complete roster. They brought in Ndamukong Suh. They brought in Linval Joseph. They brought in a little bit of that extra ammo to help their defense out to stop the run. So I'm going to stick with them with my number 2 pick.
I like it. Okay, my number 3 pick may shock you.
All right, let's hear it.
And it shocks myself because I hate this team to my core. I really do. They annoy me.
Wait, can I guess?
Yes.
Because I was thinking about, is it Dallas?
It's Dallas.
I was thinking about going Dallas.
Because here's the thing. Let me explain with this. What you saw, what they did to Minnesota, that's the team at its peak. When Dak plays like that, when Tony Pollard runs and passes and catches like that, when CeeDee Lamb and Michael Gallup can play off one another, that offense is insane. What I like most, though, about Dallas, it will play no matter what. Any team they've played this year and beaten, it's shown up. That pass rush is absurd. There isn't a better one in football. And when you get into the playoffs, pass rushes can win you games. You see it all the time. If you're playing Dallas and you're playing that offense with the way it was firing against Minnesota, which was a laugher, and that front 7 is getting to you 8 times in a game, good luck. You can't double team anyone along the line because if you do it to Lawrence, you got Parsons. It doesn't matter. This team is stacked. I like the roster. My only concern with Dallas is that, again, Dallas is a case of Dallasing. They like to mess things up sometimes. Dak can be inconsistent. But if Dallas plays like they did on Sunday with Dak throwing the ball, they're incredibly difficult to beat. So for me, again, because I think the AFC is tougher, I would say Dallas would be my 3rd pick in this. And
no, I like that pick. I thought about going with it number 2, but I couldn't pass up on Philly just because they've been so good all year. But I really thought about Dallas. I mean, even Zeke, you didn't even mention Zeke. Zeke looked good last game.
Zeke looked good, but I think it's, I mean, again, just on the
it's all about Pollard.
Cowboys should start Tony Pollard every game.
That
guy is just, he's better than I because he does not complain about being paid far less despite being the superior back in the backfield for Dallas. He's crazy. What you saw to the backfield, that catch where he beat Hicks on the wheel route, he's everything you want in a modern NFL back, and somehow he's their number 2. It's crazy.
The other thing that Dallas has going for it is they're probably going to get Odell. They're probably going to get a nice...
It does feel like that. It feels like they're going to add another weapon.
Especially with Detroit beating New York, because it felt like it was down to those 2 teams. And with New York losing, that kind of takes them out of the division race.
And with Green Bay losing.
Losing. Yeah. So it feels like Odell's going to get there. I like that pick a lot. Mm-hmm. I would not be surprised if they end up representing the NFC in the
That would be so gut-wrenching because I hate that franchise. I really do.
So with my 3rd pick, I'm dropping into the bag a little bit, and I'm actually taking one out of your playbook. I actually thought about taking them with my 2nd pick too, and I have to go with the team that represented the AFC last year. I think I'm going to go with the Cincinnati Bengals.
Damn you.
So I'm going to go with Cincinnati here. It's a team that, again, teams were calling them fraudulent as they went into the playoffs last year. They were anything but fraudulent. They came in, their defense shut down teams in the second half, which they've continued to do this year. They have Jamar Chase coming back. They have T. Higgins. They have Tyler Boyd. Joe Mixon will continue to be the running back he is. And we even saw Samaje Perine step up a little bit and play really well last game. So I like this team a lot as we continue to build in. And, of course, they got the ice in their veins in the quarterback who's manning them, which is Joe Burrow. So I'm going to take them with my 3rd pick. I like them. I think they're going to end up winning the AFC North, which means I think they're going to be at home this time, which will help them if they don't even end up as the 2 seed, depending on how Buffalo in this AFC East matchup ends up. So it kind of depends on who they get in round 2, but I really like Cincinnati as a potential Super Bowl contender.
Yeah, you know, I mean, they were going to be my next pick if they weren't, because, I mean, again, this is another team. It's sort of similar to Dallas. It's just like when the Bengals offense has all of its players on the field and it's clicking, I don't think there's a better team out there in terms of offensive output that you can find. I mean, even without Jamar the last 3 weeks, they put up 30 in 3 of their 4 games. Adding him back into the fold is huge. And I think right now when I watch the Bengals, what's so clear to me is I think Joe Burrow looks great. I think you're getting better protection against the offensive line. They're running the ball better. And I think Joe is just seeing the field extremely well right now. He's continuing to play to his strengths of just diagnosing the play before it happens defensively. I love everything I've seen from him. I just think as Joe Burrow goes, the Bengals go. and he's playing great right now. I like that pick at your number 3 selection for it.
So who's your number 4 selection? You're next up on the clock.
This is tough, and I will probably, again, surprise some people when I say this.
Okay, let's hear it.
The Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
The
Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Folks, I think you've heard me say this probably one time or two before, but we are so close to Tom Brady finishing barely above 500, squeaking into the playoffs because the NFC South is so bad, and then drawing a first-round matchup against someone who's not particularly good. Like, let's say, who'd be a wild card team in the NFC right now? Trying to go through. Like Seattle. They beat the Seahawks because it's Geno Smith, and I don't think he'll be able to handle playing in Tampa Bay as great as I think Geno is. He gets to round 2 in the lower seed, and they end up playing Kirk Cousins and the Vikings. And guess what? We all know what Kirk Cousins does in the playoffs. He lays eggs, and he comes back to his form because he can't play on noon on a Sunday in week 14 when it doesn't matter. And Tom Brady takes care of him. And then guess what? All of a sudden, Tom Brady, who was 1 game over 500, finds himself in an NFC championship game against the San Francisco 49ers. And guess what? The defense of Tampa Bay is good enough to stop the run game of San Francisco. And who does it lean on but Jimmy Garoppolo? And Tom Brady is better than Jimmy G on every day of the week and twice on Sunday. And they somehow squeak into it. I know it sounds crazy, but this is what Tom does every single time to people. You stay there. You say he's got to be done. He's 40-some years old. He's getting divorced. Giselle's seeing her jiu-jitsu instructor, and he's got to be in shambles. And he's lost all this money from FTX Bitcoin, not looking good. And somehow, some way, he's like Thanos. He's inevitable. He finds you when you least expect it. And I almost feel like that's what's going to happen this time around again. It crushes me, but I just feel like Tom Terrific is going to do it maybe to us once again before he's gone.
Yeah, I mean, great pick. I wouldn't have went there. But I like the gamble because it's Tom Brady. You always got to take a gamble on him. I get the reach a little bit, but I feel like you left the team wide open for me to kind of take who I thought taking with almost my 2nd round pick, kind of waited on because I knew you'd take Cincinnati. I'm going to take Miami. I'm going to take the Dolphins here. The speed of the Miami Dolphins is going to be a huge advantage to them once we get to playoff times, especially with the teams in this AFC. These teams in the AFC lack secondary depth, and it's going to continue to be so as we go into the playoffs. And it might be a lot to stop Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. Tua Tagovailoa is playing at an all-pro level right now, and we'll see if he continues to keep it up. Jeff Wilson, his addition has looked really nice in their offense. Their defense is playing well. Their secondary is making turnovers. I'm more of taking them as I think they can be a sneaky team. They'll be in the wild card round, and they might be able to draw a team like the Tennessee Titans, who they can pretty much easily take advantage of, and then go into the round 2 and hope that Kansas City, with their secondary lacking, with Buffalo, with their corners hurt, and with Cincinnati with Awuzie out, I think they would be able to take advantage of those matchups. So I'm going to take the Miami Dolphins in the 4th round. Now, who are you going to take with your final round pick?
God, this is so tough. Like, this is where it becomes hard. Like, it's just, there's a lot of teams who I question because the AFC teams I want to take are kind of gone. And the NFC
there is one team with a really good record. Neither
I
of us
know, and I think I'm going to say them.
Okay.
And I think I am going to say them. And I think for my 5th pick, I don't think they'll really do it, but I could see it going if they can control the game and play their game. That's Tennessee. I think Tennessee. Yes. I think Tennessee. I'm trying to think of who you were thinking of now.
Minnesota.
No. I'll take my chances with Tennessee right now over than I do with Minnesota. And that hurts me to say because I love Minnesota itself, but I'm not going to take Minnesota. I think I know what they are. I think this is a team that when the lights will shine brightest, although their playmakers on the outside will do their darndest, it comes down to Kirk Cousins. I know he's got the chains on. I know he's doing a little back and forth just to get the boys loose and bust them on the plane after the games. But what we saw last week is kind of what I think Kirk does when it really matters, when the lights are light, the lights are bright. So no, I'll say Tennessee. Look, I know Tannehill's just about as mid as it gets, but Tennessee's defense might be the best in football overall. This is a team that absolutely abuses offenses religiously. And the running game in a cold setting in Tennessee, if they're in Nashville, will travel anywhere it plays. A run game and an elite defense moves and travels. I know it didn't work last year. But if I had to bet, I would say I trust Tennessee more than I do Minnesota in a crucial game. And that's not saying a lot because both teams have terrible quarterbacks, I believe, when it comes to winning playoff games. But to Tennessee's credit and Tannehill's credit, they have been to an AFC championship. Kirk Cousins, I believe the furthest he's gone is a second-round shellacking by the 49ers, I want to say like 2019, so 2020. So I think for me, ultimately, it really is just going to be Tennessee as my 5th pick. And I know who you're going to take as your 5.
Well, so I'm kind of between two teams. I mean, one is my first call on the undrafted free agent market. Once we get out of this draft, is I'm going to be making this call. But I tend to agree with you about Minnesota. So with my 5th pick, I'm going to take the Baltimore Ravens.
Okay, I like it.
I'm going to lean on Lamar Jackson. Again, they don't have quite the weaponry to get it done, but Lamar is something special. Lamar is a player that if you ask him, he can deliver for you. He's a really good player. John Harbaugh is a seasoned veteran. They might be in Baltimore. They might end up winning that AFC North. They might have some of the things on their back. They have a really easy schedule to finish out.
They do. They really do.
They should be able to take care of business. And who knows? Maybe they end up striking magic and getting people to sign Odell.
I agree. You would hope. You would hope it would maybe.
You would hope. So they got Roquan Smith. While I didn't think that moved them,
it did a bit
that much. I mean, again, I feel like they're going to end up being there. I like them better. Now, let's talk about the biggest team we left off, which we have now both called frauds, which is the Minnesota Vikings. Biggest undrafted free agent. So you talked about it a little bit. I just want to give my perspective on why I didn't draft them. It's their secondary. I don't care. I don't care what you think of Harrison Smith. Harrison Smith is over the hill. He's still a good player, but he's not what he was. Their number 1 is Patrick Peterson, which is a problem. Their number 2 is Andrew Booth, who has not been that good. They're in trouble once they start playing really good offenses. Again, if you put them up against a Kansas City, they're going to burn the brakes off you. If you put them up against Miami, they're going to burn the brakes off that team. I mean, even if we talk, Dallas just destroyed them and just destroyed that secondary. Again, people are going to talk about Tony Pollard was really good. Most of his yardage came in the pass game, not in the run game. They're just going to get killed.
I mean, for Minnesota too is like I actually think their front 7 is really pretty good. Like they rush the passer really well, but the problem is that they don't have anyone in coverage who really wins very often. I really like Patrick Peterson. He's going to be a Hall of Famer, but the reality is he's year 12 at this point. He's way over the hill. I like Harrison Smith still. He's not a guy who I would sit there and be like, he's top 10 at the safety position at this point anymore. It's way more question marks in the back end than anything else. And I think they could win a playoff game, but for me to be able to make a big run, I see too many concerns with them. And again, for me, so much like Kirk Cousins is a great regular season quarterback, but he just doesn't do it in the playoffs. Like he had the win against New Orleans, which to be honest was kind of aided by a weird PI call back in the day, but he's just not a guy really sit there and saying, hey, he's going to lead us to a Lombardi. And of course I can be wrong because guys like Trent Dilfer have raised one, but I just don't see it with Kurt at this point. I will say though, for Baltimore, let me ask you a question though on this, since they were your 5th and final pick.
Yeah.
Does it concern you that Lamar Jackson has yet to win a playoff game? No, he has. I take it back. He has won a playoff game. They beat Tennessee in Tennessee. My bad. He has.
Yeah, he's won one. I mean, it's not the most inspiring thing in the world, but Joe Flacco hadn't won a playoff game and then went on to win the Super Bowl. So not too worried about it.
Well, Flacco had won playoff games before that.
Yeah. I mean, again, I'm okay with it. I think Lamar is going to be playing for his contract. Again, it's my last pick. I'm just kind of taking a flyer. I don't think Baltimore is actually a serious contender. It's just out of those teams left, I think they probably have the best shot. But again, I feel like Kansas City's destined to steamroll the AFC as much as I don't want to admit it.
I don't know. I still have faith in Cincinnati and Buffalo being able to possibly stop that. If it was in Buffalo, then I think you'd have a really good case.
Yeah, I would agree, but it feels like it's going to be in Kansas City.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like everything's going to have to go through Kansas City. And again, I mean, for Cincinnati, I will say for their case, I think the offense is more than good enough. And Lou Anarumo does seem to know how to make second half adjustments, and he's done it a lot against Patrick. It's just the way that he's playing right now, it makes it really difficult for me to see someone be able to continuously stop him. Because I think like last time, I think the Chargers did a pretty good job for most of the game. And even so, he still found a way to be a magician and find guys and win that game.
I'm Joe. Nice to meet you, brother. I love watching you grow up.
He's pulling down his pants. Put up your pants, my man.
Touchdown!
Is this the dagger?
Fernando Tatis Jr., a grand slam!
Iguodala. It's funny to hear a female talk about routes. Like,
Pull up your pants. Take off the bra and be a man.
Welcome to From the Backseat, hosted by Clark and Ethan.
it's funny.